Transistor is a very high quality video game.
I can't precisely pinpoint where it all started for me. I was making games basically since I was born, but my early projects feel more like the background setting up my interest in games rather than the actual incident inciting my obsession. I started making games to get away from doing school, and now I'm going to school so that I can make games. I think that started when I was 15 and finally realized that games could be good. I'd already watched a good movie and read a good book back when I was in like middle school, but I hadn't played a good game until my dad told me he got Transistor for free with PlayStation Plus. I played that game over the course of 2 days because I was stuck on the final boss for a while, but after I finally succeeded and I internalized what I had just experienced, I realized that I didn't have to write essays to say something profound, which is what I had thought for years up to that point. I realized it could be done, and done even better, interactively with ludonarrative. I can't say with confidence that Transistor is my favorite video game. Night in the Woods, Firewatch, The Last of Us, and Sunset Overdrive Doll are considerable contenders as well, but it was my favorite at the time that I first played it. It was one of, if not the very first game to demand that I reevaluate my philosophical stances on democracy and hierarchical society in the information age. It was the most compelling and nuanced argument for 21st century transcendentalism I've seen to this day. It grips you into the struggle for survival and purpose of characters who have lost everything to radicals and subverts every preconceived bias you may have had for cultural conservatism, then throws all that out the window with a new age transcendentalist philosophy. The only solution to the paradox of civilization is to abolish civilization altogether. The liberals, tyrants, and anarchists all concur that their best interest is to abandon ship and move out to the country, which is a poignant metaphor I don't have time to analyze in this assignment, but the conflict is only derived from one's desire to go out with a bang and leave a lasting impact on the society from which they depart, ideally for the better. Transistor is a story of science gone wrong, of invoking higher powers, of conflicting philosophical ideas which are all fundamentally flawed, and of the strength one finds to secure love on the brink of a devastating apocalypse. When everything changes, nothing changes, is the motto of the Camerata, the central antagonist. Hey, TLDR. It took me several years to understand what their motto meant. It was when my American history tutor once explained to me the thought process of the founding fathers who wrote our Constitution, that I understood what the Camerata fought to establish. Transistor is the literally cosmic failure of an attempt to establish stable democracy by those who are exhausted by a faux utopia controlled by internet influencers. And it's an explanation of why both are doomed to fail. But all that isn't strictly speaking inspirational to me. Its influence on my own art is almost entirely related to the presentation. I know that I want my personal games to express my cognitive ideas, but how I've made it happen is largely different from Transistor's approach, and my current project has less to do with social philosophy and more to do with meta-philosophy pertaining to individualism. Whereas, for my presentation, well, Transistor's aesthetics are extraordinarily cohesive for an indie game. There is no procedural animation to link each animation together coherently, but there are 32 directional variants for almost every character animation in the game. There is depth-sorted dynamic lighting, although it lacks ray casting since the game is pre-rendered 2D and the engineers didn't have normal maps baked to compensate for that lack of visual fidelity. And the general vibe of its Art Nouveau environmental art, which is largely similar to my favorite artistic movement right now, post-pony, has very much informed my approach to environmental storytelling. There's a whole lot more I could talk about regarding its influence on my game, but most importantly, the kind of considerations Supergiant Games made for... There's a whole lot more I could talk about regarding its influence on my game, but most importantly, the kind of considerations Supergiant Games made at the time for assembling a visually coherent 2D game has influenced me greatly, and at least partially inspired nearly every one of my works over the past 4 years. Good night.